بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We continue on with the names of Allah Ta'ala, and today we'll be discussing regarding the name of Allah Ta'ala al-Mutakabbir. Al-Mutakabbir, typically takabbur we typically translate as the one who is lofty, or you can, in a negative connotation, you can say arrogant, for example, and so on. In respect to Allah Ta'ala, there's a different ways that we can understand al-Mutakabbir, the Mutakabbir. Right? So Imam al-Khattabi, he mentions that al-Mutakabbir is al-Muta'ali an sifat al-Khalq. Right? He explains, al-Khattabi, he says that this al-Mutakabbir is that being who is exalted. He's exalted above the sifat, the attributes of all of creation. Meaning Allah Ta'ala's sifat cannot be compared to the sifat of the humanity. So that's one explanation of it. It's also mentioned that هو الذي يتكبر على عتات خلقه إذا نازعه العظمة فيقسمهم. Right? He says that the al-Mutakabbir is the one who manifests his might and his strength over all of the tyrants. Right? Meaning the tyrants of his creation. This is when they try to compete against Allah Ta'ala. This Allah Ta'ala is the one who shows his strength above and destroys all of and crushes all of the mutakabbir, or those who try to do takabbur, who try to show their arrogance. Right, so this is a different type of where Allah Ta'ala is showing his might. Imam Qatada, he explains his takabbara an kulli shar, right? That Allah Ta'ala, he is showing takabbur, he's showing his might, his power, he's exalted. He exalts himself above all types of evil. Meaning any and all forms of evil, Allah Ta'ala shows his strength and his might and his greatness, you can say, right? And then finally, one final version or explanation of it is the al-Mutakabbir huwa alladhi takabbara an dhulmi ibadi. This is also a unique aspect of understanding it, that this is that Allah Ta'ala who is exalted from ever oppressing any one of his servants. So meaning Allah's above that. So in all regards, we understand that takabbur, it comes from the root letters of kaf ba ra, right? Kaf ba ra, and ka ba ra refers to something which is kabir, something which is big, right? So typically this refers to that, someone who is big, someone who is exalted, and so on, right? So takabbur itself can be referred to as arrogance, or it can be referred to as someone who is exalted, someone who is mighty, someone who is majestic, right? So we can understand it more so in that regard, in the kabir, in the regard of Allah Ta'ala being powerful, Allah Ta'ala being bigger, and Allah Ta'ala being mightier than everyone else. Or we can understand it in the way that Allah Ta'ala is the one who is truly deserving of that type of respect and that type of honor and that type of magnificence, you can say, right? And then Allah Ta'ala explains his magnificence in, for example, against those who are arrogant, those who show their takabbur, Allah Ta'ala shows his magnificence. Along with that, we understand that this takabbur, this is only appropriate to Allah Ta'ala. For example, someone showing themselves or to be of someone of arrogance, this is only, so arrogance you can understand in two ways. One is arrogance which is impermissible, that arrogance which is undeserved, you can say. This is not deserving of this person to put himself on that pedestal, that I am so-and-so and I can do so-and-so, right? That's arrogance which is not deserved. But the arrogance which is deserved, which is the reality, which can only be applicable to Allah Ta'ala, that's actually something that's praiseworthy. Allah Ta'ala is the being who actually deserves all of the praise that's given to him. And all of the praise that he himself admits to, that is well deserved by Allah Ta'ala. Right? So that's why we find in the hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that, and it's a hadith Qudsi where Allah Ta'ala says, al-kibriya'u ridai. He says that kibr, or this arrogance, you can say, is my cloak. Wal-'azmatu izari, and the greatness is my garment. فَمَنْ نَازَعَنِي وَاحِدًا مِنْهُمَا قَذَفْتُهُ فِي النَّارِ. Allah Ta'ala says that those who try to take either from me, who try to claim as someone who is good, or someone who is big, or someone who is magnificent, then in that case, Allah Ta'ala says, قَذَفْتُ فِي النَّارِ, I will throw that person in Jahannam. Right? So we understand that true magnificence can only be attributed to Allah Ta'ala, no one else. The second hadith, we'll mention about, I'll mention about couple more hadith inshallah, and we'll wrap up inshallah. So in another hadith, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبي مثقال ذرة من كبر. Famous hadith, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says that no one who has even an iota, even an atom's weight of kibr, of arrogance, will enter Jannah. And then a person says, Ya Rasulullah, what if someone, he wants that his clothes look good and his shoes are nice? Right? This is not an objection, but a question from a Sahabi. That, Ya Rasulullah, what if someone likes wearing nice clothes? Right? This is typically, if we were there, we would ask the same question, right? That, Ya Rasulullah, what if I like wearing nice clothes, for example, right? So, is it okay? Is that arrogance? So Rasulullah, he answers very beautifully. He says, Inna Allah jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allah Ta'ala is beautiful, and Allah Ta'ala loves beauty. Al-kibru batarul haq wa ghamtun nas. And he explains. So, he's explaining that beauty is something which Allah Ta'ala loves. Allah Ta'ala loves seeing beautiful things. Right? Inna Allah jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allah Ta'ala is beautiful. Allah loves seeing the beautiful things. In another hadith, Rasulullah he says, Inna Allah yuhibbu an yura atharuhu ala abdi. Allah Ta'ala loves to see His blessings on others. Meaning, if Allah Ta'ala has blessed you, then you should use the blessings of Allah. But at the same time, al-kibru batarul haq wa ghamtun nas. That kibr, pride and arrogance is what? Is rejecting the truth and looking down on other people. That's actual pride. Right? So that's what's prohibited. That's something which Allah Ta'ala does not like. But as for looking good, that's something which is of course permitted. Coming regarding mutakabbirun, regarding those arrogant people, the hadith Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, يحشر المتكبرون يوم القيامة أمثال الذر في صور الرجال. He says that the people who are arrogant, they'll be raised on the day of judgment like tiny ants, like small ants in the form of humans, in the form of men. Right? And then يغشاهم الذل من كل مكان. That humiliation, dhul, this will surround them from every angle. They'll be humiliated at every angle. So physically they'll be very tiny ants, the size of very tiny ants, right? And they'll be humiliated in every single way. فيساقون إلى سجن في جهنم يسمى بولس تعلوهم نار الأنيار. He says that they'll be taken to this prison in Jahannam. It's known as Bulas. Right? This is the name of that prison in Jahannam. But this is a hadith Tirmidhi, by the way. This is not a made-up hadith. Hadith Tirmidhi. So he says, "Ta'aluhum narul anyar." He says one of the fires the fires of Jahannam, they will burn this person, right? These people of arrogance. And then he says, "Yusqawna min usarati ahli an-nari tinat al-khabal." This is such a unique hadith, right? Typically, we don't hear this hadith, right? But this is on the arrogance of people. He says that on the day of judgment, these arrogant people, the people who they thought that I'm someone in this world, Allah will gather them on the day of judgment. Allah will make them small, and then Allah will degrade and humiliate them, and then Allah will burn them, and then Allah Ta'ala will make them drink from the excretion, the pus, the disgusting fluids of the people of Jahannam. That if we think we're arrogant in this world, Allah Ta'ala will humble and humiliate us in the next world. So very important. Again, takabbur is only befitting only to Allah Ta'ala. We'll do one more hadith inshallah, and then we'll conclude regarding takabbur and so on. So we understand that takabbur is bad. We all understand it, right? Takabbur is bad, and we should all, of course, avoid any and all types of arrogance. We understand that even having an iota, a small amount, an atom's weight of takabbur, of arrogance is bad, right? Because takabbur is only something that's befitting Allah Ta'ala, something that only Allah Ta'ala is deserving of. Only Allah Ta'ala can actually be exalted. Only Allah can and is eligible and is able to exalt Himself in that manner. Whereas we cannot do that. We cannot pat ourselves on the back. We cannot tell others and so on, that I'm so good and so on and so forth. Because Allah Ta'ala is truly deserving of all of that. So therefore, what should you and I we do? The hadith Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he reminds us, he says that Man tawada'a lillah rafa'ahu Allah. Famous hadith Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says that those who humble themselves for Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala will raise them. So this is what you and I we must do, that at all times we must humble ourselves. That listen, now, we don't need to be fake. We don't need to show fake humility, right? And sometimes you can tell when someone is, expressing fake humility, right? That nachiz banda, naqis abd, whatever. They say all these things. You don't need to say all of those things, right? Just say, just humility comes from within. Arrogance is also from within, but humility is also from within, right? So just because someone, for example, is presenting themselves as a certain way does not mean that they are arrogant, right? You cannot tell someone else that you are arrogant. You cannot say that, right? Because arrogance comes from within. A person can be, like for example, the hadith of Rasulullah where he says that, imagine if someone wears nice clothes. You can't say that this person is wearing nice clothes because he's showing off. He's wearing nice clothes because he wants to wear nice clothes, right? He can afford it, mashallah. Well, he should wear nice clothes, mashallah. Right? And so we don't know what's inside a person. So we cannot judge other people. At the same time, regarding ourselves, we must be humble. That I must remind myself that, the day will come when I will die. When Allah Ta'ala reminds us throughout the Quran, throughout the Hadith, we're constantly reminded that there was a point in time where we were nothing. Before 100 years, we were nothing, and we were a dirty a dirty fluid. And then, now we were raised. Initially, we were young children. We needed everyone's help. We needed our mother to wash us, and so on. And then we grew up. And now we think we're strong, we think we're mighty, we think we're powerful. But then what will happen is, a time will come again when we will be humbled again. Right? A time will come when we'll be humbled again, and we'll be in need of others to help wash us, and so on and so forth. May Allah protect us from being dependent on others. And then afterwards what happens is, we go into the graves. And then again, same thing. Within days our bodies start decaying. And within a couple of days, you cannot even stand next to the dead body. This is our reality. You and I must remind ourselves that no matter how much money I have, no matter how many good perfumes, no matter how many good colognes I have, all of that will not benefit me in the next world. Right? So very important that we should never be arrogant. Don't allow ourselves to be arrogant. Anytime you have and this I'll end off here inshallah. Anytime we think of ourselves as something, we should remind ourselves that, listen, I have so many sins that if Allah were to expose even one of them, everyone would not want to speak to me. This is my reality. That Allah Ta'ala, one of the wisdoms of Allah Ta'ala is that He has concealed my sins. Otherwise, if He opens my sins and He allows everyone to see my sins, people will not even want to talk to me, forget even giving me respect. And so remind ourselves of this, and inshallah remind ourselves of the reality of the grave and the reality of the next life, and then we'll understand that takabbur is only for Allah Ta'ala, and takabbur can never be for us. Allah Ta'ala gives us the tawfiq to understand and practice. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.